Let's date forever. Here's your weekly dose of relationship fuel with Sammi and Nathan Jaeger. Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're sharing and unpacking some of our recent experiences after attending Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins. But before we dive into that, Sammi, what's been fueling you up this week?
We are fresh off the back of a long weekend.
Yeah.
A long
really
weekend
nice.
where we had very few plans. You were a little bit unwell, a little bit run down.
Yeah, you can probably still hear it a little bit run down still. So
yeah, and mine's still lingering from the week before.
Yeah.
But I think there was no real one thing that really fueled me up aside from having a couple of days of fairly unstructured, go with the flow, eat, sleep, rest, potter around at home, relax, repeat for a couple of days. And I don't think I'd really recognized how much I really needed that white space. What about you, Nath? What fueled you up?
Yeah, mine was exactly the same thing. And because I was feeling a little bit unwell, it was really nice to be able to give myself the time and the space to be able to let my body heal itself and move through whatever it's moving through. So,
but in a more upbeat energy, what are we talking about in today's episode, Nath?
Yeah, so today we're talking about our Unleash the Power Within experience after recently attending this seminar with Tony Robbins a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so this event, you've probably heard us talk about our love for Tony Robbins previously on the show, but love him or hate him, he's a pretty polarizing guy. He's not for everyone, totally get that. But I've had really positive experiences learning from Tony Robbins through books, podcasts, and seminars.
And this definitely isn't our first seminar. So I think this is our fifth Tony Robbins seminar that we've attended. We've attended the Unleash the Power Within 4 times now. This was our 4th time. A couple of times virtually and a couple of times now in person. And then we've also attended Date with Destiny as well.
So if you aren't familiar with Tony Robbins at all, he is, what is he? Like a coach, I guess. He probably wouldn't describe himself as a coach, but he sparks people to make transformational change in their lives.
Yeah.
But he's coached and educated millions of people globally. He's worked with some incredibly big names, presidents, athletes, celebrities, all the biggies, incredibly credible, and has probably, maybe not millions, but hundreds of thousands of case studies of people dedicating or appreciating Tony Robbins in their transformation. And I'm not really sure how I first sort of uncovered Tony, because I think he's almost like he's in his late 60s now. So he's been in this game a long time. He's published lots of books. So I think I've probably heard about him, who knows, probably like on a YouTube clip or something.
Yeah, and he's kind of one of those people that little snippets of his work pops up in some of your like work leadership training courses and things like that. So yeah, I'm sure that there's little snippets that you may have seen of him before anyway.
So Nathan and I first attended this event together. It was our first time for both of us in 2019, and we attended live in person pre-global pandemic at Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney.
With about 7,000 other people.
Yeah, and this event is full on. It goes for 4 days, and not like roll in at 9 and you're knocking off at 5. Like, no, these are full days. Like, we were there, I think, by about 8:30, 9.
Yeah, about 8, yeah.
Each day, some days finished at around 9 p.m. Others went through till midnight. So I bought those 2 tickets to Unleash the Power Within in 2019, I think very early in the year, maybe like January or February, I think, on like a New Year's special or something. And then my whole world really changed in that year. I quit my job. Nathan and I went overseas for a few months. I started working for myself. And when I attended that event in 2019, I was at a crossroads for sure. And that event was really influential in helping me make some big decisions in my life, one of which was to start this podcast.
Yeah, it was. I think you would have stayed overseas as well if it wasn't for that event. That was the line in the sand for coming back from overseas.
Yeah, it was. That was my deadline. And I'm so grateful that I honoured that commitment to myself and to Tony. But anyway, so during that event, we knew that we had watched – this is going to sound like a bit of a funny analogy, but like we knew that we had just watched a really good movie, like a movie that was so multifaceted and layered that there was definitely things that you missed in the first watch.
Yeah, definitely.
So on the last day of that event, we bought 2 tickets to the next year's event in 2020, and they threw in a bonus ticket because we were buying 2 tickets. We got a third one for free. So we thought this was a great deal. Boom.
Done.
And then, as we all know, the world shut down in 2020. So that event never eventuated. That live event was postponed, and then eventually held online. So we did that event again in 2020.
Yeah, a virtual one in 2020. Yep.
And then we did a virtual one again online in 2021. Honouring our ticket commitment. And then finally, we skipped 2022, no event, but 2023 back live in person. So that's how we've ended up attending 4 of these events when really we've only purchased 2 sets of tickets.
Yeah.
But that's how this came about, and this attending this Unleash the Power Within event was like the last COVID hangover delayed event thing that was still lingering in our world, because we'd bought these tickets back in 2019.
So it's definitely felt like a little bit of a end of an era or a closed chapter, and COVID is now well and truly done. That word no longer exists.
Yeah, so I think for me going into this event this time around, I did have some hopes and some dreams and some expectations, I guess. I was really excited that we had given our third and freebie ticket to one of my besties. So I was really looking forward to sharing the experience with her and seeing her potentially have some realizations about herself and her life and what she really wants. I think sharing a breakthrough with someone is so special. And I had a hunch that maybe she would have that kind of experience. But I was also pretty reflective about myself, like where I was in 2019 going to my first in-person Unleash the Power Within event to now almost 4 years later. So I was pretty reflective and drawing some comparisons about where I was then and where I am now. And I did a lot of that thinking in the lead up to the event. What about you, Nath? How are you thinking and feeling?
Yeah, leading into the event, because we had attended it 3 times before, it is still very much like a movie, that there is little nuances and there is some new content as well, and there's bits and pieces that as you evolve and grow over the 4 years now that we've been attending the event, there are things that hit differently because you're now playing from a different level. So that was really what I was trying to get out of going into this, is like, what's the next thing that I can layer on top of the learnings that I've already done in the 3 previous times from attending the event?
Yeah, so I think like in preparation for the event, the big thing is like getting our snacks in order. Like I said, they're really big days. It's held at a stadium, at an arena. And as most of you probably know, when you go to an arena, the food on offer is normally like buckets of hot chips and burgers. And I wasn't that interested in nourishing my mind with all this beautiful knowledge and not nourishing my body in the same way. So Nathan and I had really planned to cater for ourselves and go prepared and make sure that we didn't have to wait in lines or pay for overpriced greasy food that wasn't going to support the environment that we were trying to create. So the prep was a huge food shop of all the snacks and getting prepared to have really good, healthy, nourishing, supportive food ready. I think there was a little bit of homework that I did that Nathan did not do.
No, I think I've done it in previous years.
Yeah. So the homework was, again, like quite a reflective exercise to get you to start thinking about what are the areas of your life that you really love and where have you potentially got some gaps between where you are and where you want to be. So then let's dive in.
Yeah.
Tell me about day one. So maybe we should caveat this. So I said I was really excited about doing it with one of my besties, and she was flying in from another state, from little Adelaide, and unfortunately she got really unwell, like really, really unwell, hospitalized unwell. And up until the day before, we were hoping that she might be okay, but she just really wasn't, and she needed to be in care and in good hands. So that's where she was. So I probably had some emotions around that, even just on day one, that I knew that it was going to be a different experience than what I had maybe set up some of my own expectations for. Yeah, but we got up nice and early. We'd pre-organised our registration. We'd pre-organised our parking, pre-organised our snacks, made it to Kudos Bank Arena for day one. And what was the vibe, Nath?
Vibe was pretty high. I think everybody was pretty excited for the day. There is quite a bit of apprehension going into it, especially knowing what is coming later in the day, being the firewalk experience. So, yeah, there's a little bit of nervous energy, a lot of excitement from people that have maybe been to the event before or been to some other of Tony's events. So, yeah, the vibe was pretty high.
Yeah, and everyone's like got fresh energy coming in on day one. But like Nate said, like Kudos Bank Arena, I think holds like 10,000 people, and it's pretty full. It's not sold out full, but it's well over 70-80% capacity. And there's a lot of excited humans checking in, getting their registration bag and lanyard and all of that stuff and finding their seats, flicking through the workbook for the first time and buying merch and all of that sort of stuff. But when you enter the arena, if you didn't know it was a personal development event, you would think that it's a concert.
Yeah.
Like lights,
you've gone to
music,
a rave.
energy, countdown. It is pumping.
It is.
Even before the show has even started, there's the countdown clock is up on the screen. It's like a show. It's like a performance. It's really hard to describe, isn't it? 7,000 people partying and jumping up and down and raging with energy, and how you maintain that for 4 days. And somehow you do. You tap in and all while learning, hearing from guest speakers, hearing some educational content, watching some videos, doing some activities, interacting with the people around you. I think that's something that some of my friends have asked me. It's like, oh, you've been to this event like quite a few times now. Like, why do you keep going back? And Nath kind of alluded to it already, that like I'm a different person. So when I sit down and I do some of those activities, the things that come up for me have been different. But not only that, but like I've been sitting next to different strangers and who are going through their own experience, and some of the conversations I got to have with people were really vulnerable and real, people going through hard things and seeking a better life. Whether or not that was like, I spoke to one woman whose husband probably has less than a year left to live, and she's still only in her 60s. And she's like, I just can't really fathom how I'm meant to keep living without him. Like, that was an incredible conversation. I spoke to another guy who was really considering changing careers, like, and going through the inner turmoil of the tug of war of whether or not that was a good decision or not. I spoke to another guy who was about to have his first baby, and he was really like in the depths of, wow, I'm about to become a dad. So attending these events, and, you know, anyone who's willing to invest in themselves and show up for 4 whole days, buy a ticket, you know, with the time, the money, the energy, like they're a particular kind of person, right? So it was really cool to interact with some of those people. So those are definitely some of the highlights for me.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you mentioned was that the vibe was so high when you first get in there, but that we were able to maintain that for 4 days. And I think that is one of the key things, that every part of this event is curated, and that high vibe is one of the things that this event is trying to instill in you, in that you can control your emotions, you can control your state, you can control your vibe, you can control all these things, and you just learn to do that in the room for 4 days straight.
Yeah, and one of the quotes that gets repeated a lot is like, energy is the source of all change. And that if you want to create change in your life, you do that from a place where you're feeling good, not a place where you're in low energy, maybe shaming or guilting yourself about what you should do. All positive and sustainable change comes from a high energy place. So we're talking a little bit around the content, but so much of what we learned was about identifying your limiting beliefs, identifying the patterns of behavior that you're running in your own life.
That are holding you back or that aren't serving you anymore.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the different emotions that you feel and you experience regularly. What are some of the empowering ones? What are some of the disempowering ones? And what are the things that create both of those things? We talked a lot about creating an extraordinary life, and what does that mean for you, and what would need to change for that to be real, for you to be really living that truth, and then also what would need to change, but what would you need to do, and what would you need to stop doing? Yeah, I think one of the things that I always come back to that I learned from Tony Robbins that was reiterated again at Unleash the Power Within was about choosing to live in a truly beautiful state. And that's learning all about how to manage what you focus on, how you use your physiology, what language you're using, and the meaning that you're attaching to those words. And when you can have real mastery over those things, you really can choose to live in a beautiful state all of the time. So I think that's one of the things that I come back to, and I think it's just nice to hear it refreshed from Tony and think about how I can take that to another level. I can still get totally knocked off and out of that beautiful state by, everyday interaction sometimes, not even big things. So that's probably a key takeaway for me.
Yeah, and I think so much of it is about identifying the state and identifying when you might be in that low state and learning how to change that, and so that it doesn't consume your life or your day or your week, or basically just trying to get that down to the minimum time possible that it disrupts you.
Yeah, so as Nath sort of mentioned at the beginning, is that on day 1 of Unleash the Power Within, you do a firewalk. And that's not a euphemism. That's not hyperbole or anything. That's literally walking on hot coals.
Yeah.
So mid-morning on day 1 outside of the stadium, you can see the team setting up hot coals and start lighting really big fires. And you spend a lot of the first afternoon really learning about how you can manage that state, how you can manage your energy, how you can manage your mind to be able to do something as
seemingly impossible, I guess.
Yeah,
as walking
on fire.
Yeah.
So Nathan and I had done this before. We did do this at the 2019 event. Both of us walked on fire, and it was a phenomenal experience. And I'm so grateful that we were both brave enough and courageous enough and loving enough to have a go. But yeah, there was still a little bit of fear for me. Definitely. It was just too. Because I've done it before, does that really mean that I can still do it? There was little thoughts of oh yeah, but what if it was fine the first time, or what if it was a fluke, or all of those kind of
or am I in the same state or in the same place that I was last time? I think that was the key thing for me, was was I in a place last time round where I didn't have any expectation about being able to do it, but now that I've got this expectation that I can do it, is that actually going to kind of disrupt me from being able to do it this time round?
Yeah, so Tony has taught, as I said, thousands and thousands of people how to do this. He's learnt from some of the best. There's lots of cultures around the world that have firewalking practices. They do it for different rituals, different ceremonies, different coming of age sort of milestones. But in this situation, in this scenario, it was really about embodying, when I choose to do something and I really commit to it, I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's walking on hot coals without burning myself.
Yeah, it is just such an incredible experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and to then share it with quite a few thousand other people. So
yes, this isn't just something that he picks 1 or 2 people out of the crowd to go and walk over hot coals to demonstrate something. There is literally 99% of the people attending out of 7,000 people that are walking over hot coals. So there's 35 lanes of fire, and it's a pretty impressive
setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we should paint the picture a little bit. So late in the afternoon or the evening, we ran through some meditation exercises, all of the instructionals about like what to do, what not to do, how to behave, how to stay in state, how to manage your own breath, how to manage your mind, how to make sure that you're not throwing anybody around you out of state, and then how to fucking celebrate when you've done it. Like, how can you really lock in that feeling of elation, of completion, of success, of, whatever the thing is for you. Like, how do you lock that in so that you can access that feeling whenever you want to, or whenever you need to recall that memory and really be able to feel it in your whole body. So it's quite a few hours of preparation, mental preparation, the logistical preparation, what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, how we're going to stay safe. All of that is very intensive. Like, it's not without care. Yeah. There is a lot of care, and nobody is forced. There's no forcing of any, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Yeah, so we go through this briefing inside the stadium, and then everybody leaves the stadium together. And everybody does their so shoes off, tuck your shoes
barefoot,
shoes underneath your seat in the stadium, and then we leave the stadium barefooted with bare feet, and everybody's standing in state and clapping and repeating a mantra, which is as simple as the word yes.
Yeah.
So 7,000 people chanting yes, 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 while we're walking barefooted and clapping as we move towards huge paths of fire.
Yeah, so it's not a quick process either. Like, there's 7,000 people trying to walk over 35 lanes, so you need to like manage your own state and keep in state for a while. So
it's not like waiting for the bathroom.
No, that's it. But when you finally do get close, you get close quickly, and you see a couple of people in front of you walk over the fire, and then you need to step up onto the mat, get into state, and just go.
To paint the picture further, like, it's nighttime, it's dark, there is drum music playing, there's firewalking team around everywhere managing the logistics of a very dangerous thing that is fire, but then also managing the crowd control and the people, and then the coaches as well. So there's a lot of support team there to help you succeed, really. But it was phenomenal. Like, we saw a couple of little kids do it who were like probably under 10 years old, which was unreal. And their parents, they're like just supporting them to make that choice. We saw some older people do it, younger people do it, pregnant people do it, all sorts of walks of life, taking this big leap of faith. And yeah, so you step up to the plate, and then you take probably 7 or 8 steps across hot coals. And you step off the other side, and they wash your feet down so that you don't get any coals like between the webbing of your feet or anything like that. And that's it. You celebrate and you lock in that you just walked on fire.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And then we celebrated with each other. We walked, Nath walked first, led the way.
Yep.
And then I followed.
Yeah. It felt like popcorn. Felt like walking on popcorn.
Yeah. The like physical sensation is really odd, isn't it? It's like a crunchy path.
Yep.
I really didn't feel heat. I didn't
felt
feel
nothing at all.
Yeah, but I felt more heat just standing near the hot coals than I did walking across them. It was an incredible experience, and something that I really cherish to have done with you, Nath.
Yeah, it's such an amazing experience to do together, isn't it?
And then we wandered back to our seats, picked up our shoes, and it was time to go home.
So the firewalk experience really is just setting you up for the next couple of days of figuring out what you want in life, what's holding you back, and knowing that you can do things, you can change things, you can do things that you thought were impossible. So Sammi, then what were the key takeaways that you kind of got from the next couple of days?
Yeah, my note, I was trying to like put this back in order of like when things happened. But I think we've talked about the model that Tony Robbins introduced to the world around the 6 core human needs, which are certainty, uncertainty or variety, love and connection, significance, growth, and contribution. So I think for me, it was really about being reflective and figuring out which two of these core needs are really driving my behavior at the moment, and is that what I want? And it turned out no. I had been really conscious about changing them back in 2019 when we first attended the event, and I really wanted to be led with growth and variety. And then over the global pandemic, on reflection, I figured out that I was craving a lot more certainty, more than I'd ever wanted before. I think after a few years of so much uncertainty and the kind of variety that I was not nourishing for me at all, I was able to do some reflection about what I really want now, and to be led with love and connection and growth. So if you haven't heard about this model before, but the basic premise is that any behavior, any action, anything that you're doing or anything that you're not doing is being driven by a motivation to meet one of these needs. So everything that you do, you're trying to meet one of these 6 core human needs. And some of us have a greater need for certainty than others. Some of us have a greater need for significance than others. And these are all organized differently, depending on how we're living, how we're showing up in the world.
And there's normally 2 out of these core human needs that are driving at any one time. And I think one of the key takeaways from me was really about just trying to remove some of the limiting beliefs that I've had, or some of the different or new limiting beliefs that I maybe didn't have or hadn't unpacked yet since the last time that I'd attended. So as you might have heard on the podcast recently, some of our focus areas for this year have been around money and wealth building and just understanding our finances a little bit more. So some of the things I worked on around limiting beliefs were around money, and some of those mantras that you might have heard of when you grew up as a kid, like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or you need to save to get rich, or like,
you got to work hard for your money.
Yeah. Some of those mantras that you just might end up believing and that end up holding you back. So some of those things that I was working on at Tony Robbins to really dispel those myths and to realize that I am super wealthy and there's no limit to our wealth generation.
Remove the ceiling, baby.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think one of the core themes for me was remembering just how much agency and ownership I have of my own life, and that everything that I do or don't have is a result of a decision that I have made.
Yeah.
And I think there was this quote, like, you must be an active participant in your own rescue. I thought, gosh, no one's just going to come and knock on my door and give me the career or the business or the relationships or the friendships or the house or the money or the intimacy that I want. Like, no, I have to participate in creating those things. I feel like I've done a lot of work around seeking opportunities and things for myself rather than being reactive and waiting for things in the last few years. So that was really nice. It was like a little cherry on top to be like, yeah, I am living a lot of that now.
And I think just the final key takeaway was really just reflecting back on when we did first attend this event in 2019 and doing some of the same exercises and just realizing how far we have actually come in the past 4 years since attending it first time round. So
yeah, massively. If you listen to the Day Forever podcast, you will have heard me say this before, but I really believe that what gets celebrated gets repeated. And for me, attending this event, a lot of it felt like a celebration of, since 2019, I've continued to work for myself since that day. I've started 2 businesses since then. We've started this podcast. We've now got more than 150 episodes, and a beautiful audience that we love and appreciate. And we've had the great grace of talking to some incredible people and showing up and serving in ways that I'd never even dreamed possible before attending that event in 2019. So yeah, for me, there was a lot of celebration and a lot of reflection on like, hey, you're doing it, and how awesome is that, Sammi?
Yeah.
I feel like the way that we rave about this experience, we should like caveat, like, not sponsored. Like, no, just genuine Tony Robbins fans, and whatever, you might listen to this and be like, you know what, Tony Robbins isn't for me, and I'm so cool with that. But I think that everybody should be investing in themselves and their own personal development and growth and learning. I've just outed myself that growth is one of my highest needs, but
I think that was the consistency between 2019 and now. Yeah.
Yeah, but I really do. If it's not Tony, go find someone. Maybe it's one of the guests that we've had on this show who just you really vibe with, and you like their thought leadership and the way that they look at the world, and the lessons that they've learned and the way that they share. It just reiterated for me, like, to take 4 days out of our life together, the time, the money, the energy, the effort that takes is a lot. The commitment is a lot, but it's our life. And what is more important than our life? Nothing. No. So I'm so grateful that Nathan and I get to share this together. And I feel like this is like a non-negotiable for us now, is that every year to do an immersive personal development experience that we get to share. All right, Nathan, if there was one or two things that you're like, yeah, this wasn't that great, or this had room for improvement, like keeping this real, what would that be?
I think there's lots of things that probably can be pretty overwhelming as a first-time attendee. Definitely the long days. Like, people, when they sign up to something, they think that it is a 9 to 5 kind of event, and when they find out,
with structured breaks,
with structured breaks,
there's none of that.
No, there's none of that. So that's kind of one of the things that can be pretty overwhelming. But then with the no breaks, you feel like you're always missing something. You're like, I don't want to go to the bathroom because I'm going to miss something. Or like, I don't want to go grab a coffee, or I don't want to do this because I'm going to miss something. So it's incredible that it's that engaging that you don't even want to go take bathroom breaks.
For that long. Oh my gosh, your criticism, that sounded like a job interview. You're like, so my greatest weakness is that I work too hard. Yeah, that's fair. There's not very many structured breaks over the 4 days. And that, I think the challenge there is that you really do need to lean in and manage your own energy. Yeah, you need to manage your own fluid levels. You need to manage, I think for me, one of the challenges, and this is probably like very nuanced, but you're you're indoors in air conditioning with that many other people, with very little natural light for a couple of days. So one of the things that I was really intentional about this time round was to get outside and move my body, like with a walk or a swim. Nathan and I went for a swim one of the mornings before we got to the stadium, even on top of the long days, because I just felt like my circadian rhythm really needed to know what time of day it was. So that's probably my criticism, is that I just need more natural light. I'm like a complex plant. Like right amount of food, right amount of water, right amount of sunlight, and I'm sweet. Yeah. If one of those things is off, you won't get the best out of me. Yeah. So, conclusion. If someone has heard this episode and they're like, that sounds pretty intense. Should I really go to this? What would you say? So
what I would say is that you can now do this all from the comfort of your own couch.
That's true.
And attend it virtually. So that kind of removes a few of the barriers that we were talking about. And the experience doing it at home is just as incredible. There are a couple of things like the firewalk that you don't get to do for very obvious reasons, but they are replaced with different exercises that you can do at home. So definitely it's been an incredible experience the first time that I did it and the fourth time that I've done it as well. So I'd say this is
dive
probably, in and do it.
This is probably the question. Will you go again?
Yeah, definitely. I'll go again at some point. Will you go again?
Yeah. Yep, I'll go again, definitely. To reflect on the person that I was in 2019 and the person that I am now, I'm different and I've grown, and I know that I'm going to have new level, new devil. So absolutely.
And as much as the framework of the content is the same, Tony's always evolving as well, and Robbins' research that backs all of this as well. They're continually evolving their thinking, their continually looking at ways to better master the human body
And mind.
And so there's always something new that you can take away from it.
All right. So if you had a one-word close on your Unleash the Power Within experience, what would it be?
Breakthrough.
That's a great word.
What would your one word be?
Breakthrough.
My other word that I was thinking of was popcorn.
Maybe I'm going to cheat a little bit and put a hyphen in there, but I think it's rise up.
Yeah.
I really recognized how much I've grown and how much more I've still got, how much room I've got above me as well to rise up.
Raise your standards.
Yeah.
And this was one of the concepts that they talked about there as well, that this year's 80% will be next year's 60%. That as you continue to level yourself up, the level that you were playing at this year, if you look at it in a year's time, you'll be like, wow, that was such a low level. So raise your standards.
So thank you for joining us for this episode. We know it was not our usual, but the whole premise of our show is about dating yourself and your chosen person for forever. And a really big part of dating yourself and your person is about getting to know you and them in deep, incredible ways. And that's what this event was for me, for us. We had some incredible conversations about our marriage, about our relationship, about what we want, what we're doing really well. We talked a lot about our individual relationships with self and what needs work and what we're already doing really well. So thank you for riding with us, and to say thank you for joining us. We have given 10 bricks to one of our favorite buy one, give one projects with Classroom of Hope. They're building schools in Indonesia, but not only are they building schools, they're building schools with bricks made of reclaimed and recycled plastic, which is just phenomenal. It's just the ripples of impact on that project are phenomenal, and it's really close to our heart. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for making that possible, and keep on investing in yourself and adding fuel to your own tank.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.